Well, we did it. We made it through our week of outdoor school on a Friday the 13th, no less. Woof. You know, I've said before that I'm not a superstitious person. But being surrounded and working in a community full of them, you can't help but think about what the superstitions are, whether you subscribe to them or not. So Friday the 13th comes with a negative connotation. People tend to think it brings bad luck or it's a bad omen, whatever you want to say. But I had a feeling this morning that it was just going to be a rough day. Like, I just got one of those vibes. Like, it could have happened on any day. But today especially was one of those vibes. It was our last day outdoor school. It's a Friday. Usually we finish on a Thursday. And it felt a little off. And I was not wrong. My goodness. I was not wrong. But we lived. Nobody got hurt. Seriously hurt. Nobody got lost. So I guess I'll do it again next year. But what I want to talk about today is Sesame Street. I talked about Elmo a while back and the portrait of his parents. But I want to talk about a character in particular that I feel has just gotten the shaft. Like, just totally, detracted from. Growing up, I always felt that Big Bird was the main Sesame Street character. Like, aside from, Snuffleupagus? Big Bird is the biggest character. And one of the only puppets that is actually fully occupied by a human body. And is not just an arm. And in the original intro, at least the intro that I was familiar with growing up, Big Bird was the one kind of like collecting all the kids. As they're singing the song, Tell Me How to Get to Sesame Street, he's getting them all together. And honestly, I don't know if Big Bird is a guy or a girl. As far as the gender of the bird itself, I always assumed it's a guy. But such is life. Anyway, I always viewed Big Bird as like the main Sesame Street character. Like, that's who Sesame Street centered around. And maybe it's only because that was my perception, but that's how it always came across too, is that Big Bird was the leader, as it were. That is so not true anymore. Like, I bring this up because I drew Big Bird as the Friday drawing on my board today. There's Big Bird. And it just said, can you tell me how to make this week complete? And play on, can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? And as I was drawing that, I was like, you know what? Big Bird isn't really like the most popular. The kids knew who it was. They came in, oh, it's Big Bird. Why'd you draw Sesame Street? We're not babies, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you can all probably learn something from Sesame Street, to be honest. But I digress. Now, the most popular character is undeniably Elmo. Elmo is the most popular character. He's got, like, 2 of his own shows. Elmo's World and the Furchester Hotel, which is on Netflix now. I don't know if you're familiar with the Furchester Hotel, but it is largely Elmo-based as well. I would say the second most popular character from Sesame Street is now the Cookie Monster. And he's also the dumbest. Like, he doesn't speak in complete sentences, doesn't use good grammar, and all he eats is cookies. Like, his main life goal is to show people cookies when it's not pertinent to the situation, just so he can eat the cookie. Like, that is what Cookie Monster lives for. And Elmo doesn't talk appropriately either. So for a show that's supposed to teach people stuff and help them learn how to be good citizens and have good character and all that stuff, their 2 most popular characters are the worst spoken and dumbest. Like, yeah, they teach valuable lessons, I guess, but they're not the most positive role model. for kids. And I think that speaks to the direction our society is heading, that we appreciate the characters that are goofy and entertaining and fill in whatever other adjective you want, as opposed to the ones that can actually teach us something. I mean, you have Count Von Count, who is literally teaching. He counts everything. He's talking about numbers constantly. You have Big Bird, who's just like the nicest, most loyal friend ever, and cares about everyone. He is the epitome of what I think Sesame Street should be. There are countless characters, but they're always adding new ones too. Like, was it Abby Cadabby? I think is her name. She's a newer character who's not even a real, like, obviously they're all monsters or different creatures, but Abby Cadabby is a fairy, which is a total fantasy and doesn't make sense. You have Bert and Ernie. Ernie is extremely musical, and Bert is just book smart. He just knows a lot of things. So it's just all these characters that have such great qualities that are being downplayed because you have two characters, one primarily being Elmo, that are overwhelmingly popular, and I feel like they're kind of taking away from the purpose of the show. And I wish they weren't. I like Elmo, I like Cookie Monster, they have their place, but when they're the two most commonly referenced and used and idolized, for lack of a better term, I take issue with that, and I don't want that to be the case. And my daughter loves Elmo, and I love Elmo for the fact that my daughter loves Elmo. Like, he's a cool character, he's an alright guy, he's a nice person, he teaches a lot of good things, but he talks like a baby. He's only 3.5 years old, but he talks like a baby, and I don't know, I guess you have to teach kids where they're at, and Elmo is targeted to the younger kids, but I don't think Sesame Street is doing a very good job of pushing the older kids. And I know it's a show that's primarily targeted at younger kids, but you should have, if you're going to do these spin-offs, then make a spin-off with some of the other characters that are appealing to the older children. And I'm not talking like 10, 11, 12-year-olds, because they're done past that. They have Wild Kratts, and I don't know what other PBS shows there are that they can watch, but the 6 and 7-year-olds that are kind of on that cusp of they're becoming children and not babies. They're past the toddler stage. They're past the early, primary care age. But there's not a program really like Sesame Street has the potential to be so much more, and they used to be so much more. I gleaned a ton of stuff from Sesame Street, and I just feel like if I watch it now, kids aren't getting that same stuff. So I hurt for them because of that, and I hurt for our society because of that. I'm not saying Sesame Street's the answer to all of our problems, but it would definitely help a lot of our kids and our students. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday.